Thank you, Chitra, for inviting me. It is absolutely an honor to be a part of this particular festival. To look at it from the larger context of the art and culture sector that we are really that's happening around us. I think one of the foremost fundamental aspect that we all have been trained to think and also be very mindful to be really inclusive about is the factor of inclusion, equality, and diversity. Now, if we are trying to have these fundamental principles around, I think that itself will give quite a lot of space for the youth to be a part of it. Why is it that we are still having a problem? The problem is certainly because of the lack of engagement, lack of enough amount of involvement, and then the larger acceptability aspect in terms of these particular communities that we are talking about. May that be the communities of a very minority oriented, or may that be the secluded community. It could be a community which are actually suffering at the larger stage, or it could be communities or general criteria of people, right from especially abled to LGBTQ plus community and to all the community that we're talking about, in spite of all the differences of country, region, race, and language, and all of that. But the fundamental problem still is there, that there is a wide gap, and there is a certain kind of a larger contention on why is it really not largely inclusive, or why is the sense of equality and diversity still not yet there. We might be making progress, but we have to really introspect ourselves into the way we are conducting and the actual amount of acceptability that we are really looking at in terms of all the participation from all communities. So this is one of the larger concern that we really have, that we have to really look into in terms of equity within the larger space of art and festival. And one other major important aspect apart from this that tends to be of a very serious debate and discussion is how safe is the world really for all kinds of freedom of expression, freedom of creativity, freedom of participation. The recent UNESCO report really says, which refers to the Free Muse report of 2021, says that more than 1,200 violation of artistic freedom worldwide has already been registered. A record number of 39 artists were reportedly killed in 12 countries across, and 119 artists were imprisoned in 24 countries. This we are just talking about the major highlights only of 2021. So we can imagine how it has been and how it would be now, to a large extent. And this has also been one of the discussion in the recent UNESCO meeting in terms of freedom of expression and creativity and protection for artists and their creative expression. Now, we all know that several movements in the part of the world has actually happened from this very same concept of creative thinking, creative expression, and freedom of expression aspect. Not just only for journalism or reporters or anything, but even artists also are a part of this very same campaign, who are trying to make a larger awareness movement across the world. For example, the ongoing environmental art movement itself really gives quite a very eye-opening moment to the rest of the world to really wake up to really save the nature that we really have, and they are trying to put it in the most interesting, most provocative manner that is possible to really engage people around the world. So these are all the things that we have to really be very careful about. We need to think about policies, how we can really bring in terms of having all this aspect very clearly at a healthy level of inclusion, equality, and diversity. How can art be a catalyst for creating a better society? Well, apart from the previous points that we're really speaking about from the point of view of policy-centric driven ideas, debates, discussions, involvement of all the countries, involvement of all the communities, involvement of all the world representative forums, leaders, festivals, all of them need to really come into a common board of thinking or debates or discussion. That will be the first minor important step, which I think already is happening at a various level, but which may not really be of participation from all the countries across. We are still yet to challenge that particular situation. Now, what can be done about this particular situation is, first of all, I would really recommend for what we call as art education, which most of the art educators have been really campaigning for quite a lot of, you know, years now. And as what even Picasso says, that every child is an artist. The problem is, how do you remain an artist once you grow up? I mean, that's a kind of a situational challenge that an individual space in all the part of the world really have. Now, saying this, the art education is one of the very important aspects, right from the childhood, from the school education itself. And if that gap is not built, then the mindfulness or the aspect of creative thinking towards, or compassion towards the rest of the people in the part of the world, all of these aspects will have its own reciprocative effects in their thinking and the structure of thinking and the frame of mind. And this is something that is also been proven through various projects and education and experiments across. And we know how most of the places where people or children are really largely sensitized towards creative mediums or creative attitudes have a better sense of understanding, or better sense of communicating, better sense of really thinking about everything in their life. And this is something that we have already been seeing. So culture is an essential part of everyone's life, and that should be considered as a primary and the most important mandatory subject across the school level itself. So this is the first part of it, and that should not end with the school either. That is exactly what most of the educators are really campaigning for. If we really kill the creative education, creative subjects of education in the school level and not take it to the higher education, that again is a failure of what we really did. And that's almost like growing up something and just killing it after a particular year, knowing that there is a potential. And this is something that we need to really look at a policy level, at a implementation level, at an institutional level, at a global level largely. And art, what the role of youth within art is quite very important to a larger extent. If you see, right from all the mediums, from theatre, from visual art, from music to dance or theatres or performances, or the new age experimental medium, or everything that you can think about, filmmaking, all of that you can really think about has a very crucial involvement of youth-centric engagements. And this is something that is very obvious, that can be seen in all the sectors. And the youth have also been quite very interested in taking quite a lot of initiatives to really challenge certain ideas, to bring in a certain kind of debates in societies, and to do quite a lot of experimental intellectual thinking that may really be critical at a larger sense of society. And this has also been having quite of a backlash. So how can we prevent and moderate it? These are things that we should really look into from a policy point of view as well. Now, looking at this art, what can this youth and art can really happen in today's context? One of the perfect examples that we can look into is various art festivals that has been happening, and one of such kind of an incident that happened a few years before in India is MTV Coke. And we all know how this particular project really involved various people and artisans, especially the indigenous artists from various parts of the South Asian circle, including Pakistan, Bangladesh and various other places, to bring into a bilateral composition of a collaborative effort, which came out with a brilliant effect of music and various such kind of an outcome. And this really was kind of a soft diplomacy approach, which was very necessary to really build in that kind of bilateral relationship into a much more closer, warm way of really looking into it. And if this is a kind of an exercise that can be done, I'm sure this is kind of an exercise happening in various other parts of the world as well. And we need to really support and encourage these kind of activities more. And art can be used much as what we call as cultural diplomacy or art diplomacy. Is something that is very crucial, which we all have been seeing right from the World War II onwards. And we have been using it in various ways, but I think there could be even much better way that we could really do it by also giving a certain kind of a space in not just at the very political diplomatic space, but also the cultural diplomatic space, and in various social spaces as well, for even various categories of youth as well. So just to conclude the point, what we should also try to look into is not use art or not use art diplomacy or cultural diplomacy, not only at a political stage or a political centers, but also have to really be much more democratic and much more openly available for the youth to practice it and to really engage the society at all levels in a holistic manner. And that also means bringing an inclusiveness within, not just within one particular society or one community, but across society and across community, with a certain kind of a larger critical purpose. So I think then the role of the youth will have a much more focus and much more. They would be motivated to really think about on all this particular plane, which they are already doing it, but unfortunately they're not getting platforms to really collaborate, and they might need some kind of a guidance at some point of time, which I think is something that they are missing at some point of time. So art as a kind of a art diplomacy, a cultural diplomacy, has an immense power to really be explored from that particular point of view, and youth plays a very crucial role.